Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, taking your sources, your research, and really pulling out the essential knowledge you need. Today, we're digging into a huge shift in Hollywood power. We're focusing on one person who, well, fundamentally changed her own game, and maybe the industry's too. You definitely know Reese Witherspoon. Maybe you think Elle Wood's right. Or her Oscar for playing June Carter Cash. But if you're tracking real influence, her biggest power play happened off-screen. That strategic move leading to the $900 million sale of Hello Sunshine back in 2021.
Yeah, it's a pretty high-stakes story, and our sources, they really lay it out. This big pivot wasn't born from just, massive success after massive success. It actually came from a time when she felt overlooked by Hollywood, like she was being passed up for lead roles. So we're diving deep into the strategy, the why behind it all. It's not just about the money, though that's part of it. It's really a masterclass in building ownership and rewriting the rules of a system that kind of tried to box her in.
That's such a key contrast, isn't it? Because for years, she was the definition of success in the old way. Audition, act, get paid really well.
Exactly. Top of the game.
But she looked around and realized, even at the top, she was still playing by rules someone else made, still dependent.
And that dependency, it clearly hit a wall. There's this quote, and it basically launched the whole thing. She said, "I wasn't getting roles that were interesting to me anymore, so I decided to start creating them."
Wow.
That wasn't just like a creative whim. It was a fundamental decision, moving from performer to, well, proprietor. Okay, so let's unpack how that financial thinking shifted.
Right. Let's start with that traditional path she'd already mastered. Born in New Orleans, acting professionally at 14. You've got Legally Blonde in 2001, Walk the Line in 2006, winning the Oscar. Iconic stuff. She had the fame, the awards, and definitely the big paychecks that come with being an A-lister.
Yeah, and that's, top-tier employment in that world. But even at that level, you're essentially a highly paid contract.
An employee, basically.
Right. Your income depends on the studios, their decisions, their goodwill. You get paid for the project, maybe some residuals down the line, but you don't own the actual thing. You don't control the IP or the whole value chain.
So still waiting for someone else to say yes to the next job. High value, maybe, but low control.
Precisely. And the real revolution, the financial one, it happened in stages. It started with Pacific Standard back in 2012, which then grew into Hello Sunshine in 2016. And that shift totally redefined money for her, professionally speaking. She stopped focusing only on getting the biggest salary for a role and started building equity. Equity in a company that owned the content that created it.
That's the crucial difference the sources point out, right? Between being a high earner, a millionaire, and building an actual empire. The empire builder owns the machinery.
Yes. She went from just being a name in the credits, however prominent, to being the name above the company, controlling the asset itself.
As a whole different mindset.
It really is. She redefined what success looked like for her. It wasn't about waiting for Hollywood's offers anymore. It was about what she could build, what she could own, and what she could control because of that ownership. By focusing there on equity, she turned her creative drive and her brand influence into actual scalable financial capital.
And what's so interesting is that this huge strategic pivot, it wasn't sparked by some massive career high point. It came out of frustration, right? Feeling stuck. If you look at her career after that 2006 Oscar, there's that period in the early 2010s, the roles just seemed less impactful. Often those rom-com leads, scripts that maybe weren't pushing her.
Yeah, the industry kind of put her in a box. A very profitable box, sure, but still a box. And when the system wasn't delivering the kind of substance she wanted, well, she decided to disrupt the supply chain herself.
That's where Pacific Standard comes in. That first move seems really calculated.
Oh, absolutely. And look at those first projects. Gone Girl, Wild. These weren't just random picks. They were making a statement.
Critically acclaimed hits, too, which proved her point.
Exactly. And think about the resistance those projects might have faced initially. Gone Girl is pretty dark, complex. Wild is about female resilience, not a typical romance. Studios might have hesitated, seen them as risky bets, but she backed them. They succeeded financially, critically, and they were female-driven stories.
So she proved the audience was there.
She basically showed them the money they were leaving on the table by ignoring these kinds of complex, female-centric stories. She didn't just ask them to change, she demonstrated the market for it.
That's powerful.
And that's where she really learned that golden rule, as the sources put it. Ownership isn't just for show, it's a power move. Suddenly, if she owned the book rights, she controlled the development, the casting, the deals. She wasn't waiting by the phone anymore.
She was making the calls.
Making the calls, leading the teams, negotiating the whole economic setup. That long game transformed her from just a talented actor into a real power player in the industry. Undeniable.
Let's talk about those habits of power she developed. Because there was that moment after the Oscar when maybe the phone wasn't ringing quite as much. For most actors, that's terrifying, right? Career fear.
Definitely.
But instead of panicking, she strategized. She shifted from passively waiting for roles to proactively building this media machine.
That shift came from a really key insight captured in that question she asked. Why does it have to be the same 20 people making all the movies?
Right, challenging the structure itself.
Exactly. It points to a bottleneck she wanted to break open. And her first big move wasn't about getting a new agent. It was about securing the raw material, the intellectual property, the IP.
So instead of waiting for scripts, she started optioning books, novels with those complex female characters at the center.
That's the engine right there, the content pipeline. And it immediately paid off with huge successes like Big Little Lies. She executive produced that, started it too, from 2017 to 19. 8 Emmys.
And the key thing there, she created the framework for that success. She wasn't just hired help.
Precisely. She owned the outcome, which completely changes the risk and, importantly, the reward.
Okay, so this leads perfectly into Reese's Book Club, launched in 2017. A lot of people see it as, just a nice passion project about books. But the sources flag it as something much smarter. A business model in disguise.
Oh, it's brilliant infrastructure. Absolutely brilliant. The book club isn't just a reading list. It's like a live focus group, a cultural accelerator, all rolled into one.
How so?
Well, it builds community, right? It generates buzz around certain stories. And crucially, it proves market demand before they even think about spending money on a script.
So when she picks a book,
it becomes an instant bestseller that validates the audience appetite for that specific story, that kind of narrative.
So she's basically using the book club to test the waters, see what resonates with people, and then she strategically cherry picks the hottest ones, like Daisy Jones and the Six, to adapt through Hello Sunshine.
Yes. It turns audience attention directly into data for IP development. It's incredibly efficient.
We're calling this the compound influence model in the sources.
And it's probably the smartest piece of the whole strategy. She took her personal brand, her taste, her credibility, and turned it into this repeatable, scalable machine. She stopped just being in the spotlight and started building the spotlight, one that could lift up other authors and creators who fit her vision.
It's like this strategic generosity.
Exactly. Which, by the way, also generates a steady stream of valuable assets for her company. It's not just content. It's a whole vertically integrated influence ecosystem she built.
And that infrastructure, that ecosystem, brings us right to the peak moment. A huge deal in August 2021. Candle Media, backed by the private equity giant Blackstone Group, acquired Hello Sunshine. And the valuation was, staggering. US $900 million.
The number is eye-popping for sure, but the nuance behind why is even more telling. You have to ask, why would a massive private equity firm like Blackstone, known for stability and predictable returns, why buy a media company started by an actress?
Good question.
They weren't just buying a library of films or shows. They bought, as the sources say, a cultural engine powered by Witherspoon's vision. They bought that compound influence model we just talked about.
Right, that speaks to the sustainable long-term value she'd created. PE firms aren't usually interested in one-hit wonders. They want predictable IP generation, a reliable audience connection.
Which the book club delivered perfectly. Predictable flow, stable connection. And connecting this back to the bigger picture, the most critical detail here is that this sale, it wasn't an exit. It wasn't her just cashing out and walking away.
That's key.
Absolutely. Our sources confirm she kept a significant ownership stake. She stayed on the board. And crucially, she remained the guiding creative voice, the face of the brand.
So she didn't just sell. She effectively leveraged up, took that huge valuation, maybe de-risked a bit, but reinvested alongside Blackstone, while keeping control of the vision.
It's really high-level strategic play. It proves that the real long-game players, they build platforms that last. Platforms that don't just survive moments, but thrive across market cycles.
So the $900 million wasn't just for the movies and TV shows.
No, not at all. It was for the whole package. The media arm, the community she built, the scalable IP pipeline, that whole storytelling infrastructure she'd spent almost a decade carefully constructing. She literally turned her personal influence into a solid, scalable financial asset. And undeniable one.
Reese Witherspoon's whole journey here, it really feels like a blueprint for anyone, really, in any field who's ever felt kind of overlooked or underestimated. She didn't just fight harder for the same small roles or beg the gatekeepers. She literally built the table, like the sources say, where she wanted to sit, and then invited others to pull up a chair.
Yeah, her success really boils down to that ownership thinking. She stopped asking that passive question, who's going to pick me, which so many people get stuck on.
Right.
And started asking the strategic one, what can I build that makes me undeniable?
And it's interesting, she put her values first, telling these complex stories about women, even when maybe the market wasn't explicitly asking for them.
But ironically, or maybe not so ironically, by sticking to those values, she proved the market was actually starving for exactly those kinds of narratives.
Yeah.
She tapped into something latent.
Her power didn't arrive overnight in some big flash.
No, it was quiet. It came through these deliberate, compounded moves year after year, which brings up a really important question for you, the listener.
Yeah, in a world that's so obsessed with quick wins, going viral, that immediate hit, she played the long game. She invested in what you might call slow power and narrative capital, the lasting value of owning great stories.
She proved you don't actually need to win the spotlight every single year. You just need to own the stage once and then keep controlling the lights.
So the question for you is, how do you shift your own thinking away from just waiting to be chosen towards strategically building something, an ecosystem, a platform, whatever it is that makes your vision, your expertise, truly undeniable?
That's the ultimate lesson, isn't it? Taking complete control of your own story.